Okay, Judge Gordon. So, as I mentioned, this is a part of a larger project, and so today we'll be asking you questions. Some of the questions will be just general questions about your background, and then we'll have a few questions that we'll ask you about your church involvement, some other questions that we'll ask you about just your experience of race and race relations in the U.S. And then we'll conclude with some questions about community change, particularly community change around Tinley Temple in this area that Du Bois called the Seventh Ward, which is basically
The old Seventh Ward.
right.
It's not
Yeah.
the Seventh anymore.
Right.
It's the old Seventh Ward.
Right, right. So before we proceed, I also wanted to let you know that we'll have several products for this project. I'm not sure that you've seen them, but let's see here. Just want to give you some idea about the way your work will be produced. So we will make booklets like that one. We'll also have a booklet where we'll compile the various histories that we've transcribed from the other church members for Tinley Temple. But we'll also be putting this information on our website with video clips and quotes.
Who's the hour? Who's the?
University of Pennsylvania. The project is through the University of Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, with that said,
Are you a student?
I'm a visiting scholar. I
Okay.
was a student. I have my PhD from University of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I graduated in 2002
Mm-hmm.
and was invited back as a visiting scholar. My mentor that was on my dissertation committee is now head of 2 programs at Penn,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm working through his program.
Did you do your undergrad there too?
I did my undergrad at Johns Hopkins University,
Okay. Down in Baltimore.
right, in Baltimore.
Okay. All right.
And so I have 2 graduate degrees from University of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm actually in Pittsburgh and I'm doing research at University of Pittsburgh, and I come here maybe once a month to do the work on this project.
Okay.
Dr. Amy Hillier is a professor at University of Pennsylvania in the School of Design,
Mhm.
and she was the founder of the larger project. I started the Oral Histories 2 years ago, and Mrs. Reddick and Mrs. Weaver-Poole were the first 2 people that we interviewed about.
Well, when do you intend to publish the project?
Well, we intend to finish the Tinley Temple segment of the project sometime this year, so that we would have it ready to publish when you have your special event. I think Reverend Smith mentioned there's a special event next year.
175 or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so we're planning on having it completed in time
For that.
event.
Okay.
But we do want to have a showing before that event. Again, we want to give everyone who participated multiple opportunities to view their own work and to view what we produce, so that if they have some corrections, some changes, you'll have an opportunity to do that several times before we'll disseminate anything.
I'm sorry. I think it'd be 180, not 180. I think.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
So with that, does that sound reasonable to you? That's
Yeah.
something that you consent to participate in?
Yes.
Okay, all right, well, great. Well, thank you so much for your time. So we'll get started. For our record, could you give us your full name and spell it for our record so we make sure we have
Name is
it?
Levan, Levan, small v, Gordon, Grdon.
Okay, okay, great. Can you tell us how long have you lived here in Philadelphia?
All my life.
All your life, okay. And when is your birth date?
April 10, 1933. So
Okay.
80 years I've lived here, except for a couple years in the military.
Okay. And your parents, were your parents from Philadelphia?
No, they were not from Philadelphia. They were both from South Carolina.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. All right. And where exactly have you lived here in Philadelphia? Have you lived in the same neighborhood your whole time?
No, I grew up not too far from the church.
Okay.
Here, in 1000 block of Bainbridge Street,
Okay.
700 block of South Margon Street, which is about 2-3 blocks away from here.
Okay.
After I got married, I moved to North Philadelphia, and then we moved to Mount Airy, where I presently live.
Okay. Okay. Could you share a little bit about yourself, and that could be, you know, we just want to give you an opportunity just to describe yourself in any way you want to for this purpose of this project. It could be to talk about your family, your career, just in general, how would you describe yourself in your life?
Well, I grew up here in Philadelphia. Went to public schools, elementary school, junior high school, which is only maybe about 2 or 3 blocks away from this area here where I'm now. Went to high school out in West Philadelphia High School, graduated from there. Went to Penn State for 2 years, went into the military, was discharged, finished up my graduate work at Lincoln University, and that's like that Morgan business at Lincoln University, Pennsylvania, and then went to Howard University School of Law for my law degree. I practiced law here in the city for approximately 12 years. I was appointed to the Municipal Court of Philadelphia in 1974. I was elected to that court in 1975, and I served on that court for 5 years. And in 1979, I was elected to the Court of Common Pleas and served on that bench for 20 years. Retired at the end of 1999 from that court. I was married. My wife recently passed last December. We were married for about 56 years prior to her passing. I had one daughter and granddaughter. My daughter lives in California, and basically that's about it.
Okay. Can you share with us your wife's name and your daughter and granddaughter's name?
Yeah, my wife name is Vivian Janice Gordon. My daughter is Shari Lynn, SHARI hyphen LYN, Lisa Gordon Jackson, and my granddaughter is Lauren Jackson.
Okay, great. How long have you been a member here at Tinley Temple?
About 75 years.
Okay.
I grew up here.
Okay. So it sounds like your parents were members.
My mother was a member here,
Okay.
yes. She brought me here, turned me over to the Sunday school, my first Sunday school teacher.
Okay.
The rest is church history.
Okay. Can you tell us about some of your highlights of being a member here at Tinley Temple?
Well, growing up here, this church has been so much a part of my life. And I always like to say I was able to establish some of the things in life that I established because of this church and the people who mentored me, helped raise me to become what I became. So the church has meant a whole lot to me. I served as the supervisor of the junior ushers for about 50 years. Just retired from that a few years ago. I served on the trustee board for about 40 years. I was chairman of the board for a number of years. The usher board, and several other ministries. Right now, I'm the chairman of the stewardship committee. So I've been involved with the church ever since I got out of college. And I said when I got out, I wanted to come back and do something for the church. And I've been involved since then.
So it sounds like the church has been a very influential part of your life, and that you've been very active in the church as a result.
Correct.
In your view, what are the ways that the church has influenced the broader community?
Well, I think it's influenced the broader community. This church has served a lot of people. One of the things we've known for is our soup kitchen, which we still have today. That was one of the things that Dr. Tinley started, I understand, back during the Depression era. And we have continued that. And now we serve, I think it's 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And we serve the community in that respect. We've also gone out and outreach in the community. We've had several projects here that people have used the church for events. I remember when Jesse Jackson was campaigning in '88 for the presidency. He had a rally here. I remember growing up as a kid, shortly after World War II, the NAACP had a big rally here. Marion Anderson was one of the people who was here at that place. And I remember the church being full to capacity because I was standing next to the row where my mother was seated at that time. So the church has been involved in this community for quite a while.
Having such a long tenure with Tinley Temple, what legacy or what do you want to see as the future of Tinley Temple?
I want to see Tinley Temple grow, continue to be a beacon in this community. We were one of the first black congregation to own property on Broad Street. I don't know if you're aware of that, but we were probably the first, and we still have it. We started next door there where that vacant lot is. It's the old church, East Calvary, and then moved in this building in 1924. So the legacy, I'd like to see us continue to do the kind of work we've been doing, reaching out in the community, keeping our soup kitchen going, and just being there for these people in this community.
I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit now and focus a little more on some of the topics that were important to Du Bois and some of the things that he spoke to people about when he was going door to door. Can you share with us some of your own life experiences as they relate to the color line, as they relate to race in America?
Sure. I traveled in the South at an early age. The first time I went south, I was about 8 years old. I was traveling with my aunt, my mother's sister, and we had to travel in the colored coach. And that was something new to me at that age, because I had traveled in New York and Washington to see family, but never in a segregated coach or bus. And that was my first experience with it, going south with her, being in, quote, the colored coach. And then being there, colored water fountain, the white water fountain. Couldn't go into certain restaurants, couldn't eat at certain lunch counters, which was somewhat new to me as an 8-year-older and growing up here in South Philadelphia. I had not experienced that. I remember going south again. I think I was about maybe 13 then, and I wanted an ice cream. And I went to the ice cream box, opened it up, got ice cream. And the lady at the store said, "Boy, you're not from around here, are you?" "No, I'm not." "Well, you wouldn't have done that if you were." And that, in other words, I wasn't supposed to open that box myself and get my own ice cream. So that, and probably my first experiences with it.
You talked about being in the military. What was your experience of race in the military?
Not a whole lot, because when I went in '53, the military was integrated. Truman had integrated the military during his tenure as president. Prior to that, it had been segregated. So the outfit I was in was an integrated outfit. And several of us from South Philadelphia went in together. And several whites, blacks. And this one experience, I had this guy from Virginia. And I guess he brought his prejudice with him. And I think I was whistling or something. And he got upset with me. And he was a little bigger than I was. And when I looked around, I was surrounded by a lot of the white fellows from South Philly here who were going with me. And they told me, I said, Jocko, we was hoping he would hit you because we were ready to jump on that rebel. I said, now you tell me. Now you tell me, you know. But, so I didn't really experience a lot of racism in the military. Not to say some may not have been there, but personally, I just can't recall an experience that I had with the racism in the military. Like I said, we had an integrated company, and we all kind of looked out for each other. We played ball together, and we ate together. Some of the friends now I still see from this area who went in with me, and we're still friendly.
Are there any experiences that you could share that stand out for you during the time before the civil rights movement that might be that might help young people understand what race relations look like for blacks in the U.S. before the civil rights movement?
We had a lot of organizations that formed because blacks could not be accepted by whites. The American Bar Association, the American Medical Association, the American Bowling Congress, until they dropped those clauses. And Major League Baseball, we can start with that. Jackie Robinson coming in 47, and I had the privilege of seeing him the first time he came to Philadelphia with the Dodgers. But they had organizations like that. I'm a member of the National Bowling Association, which was formed in 1939 because blacks could not bowl in the American Bowling Congress and the Women's International Bowling Congress, WIBC. So the National Bowling Association was formed, so that blacks would have an opportunity to bowl in tournaments and have the same kind of programs that those two organizations had. What I find today is a lot of young people do not know about the struggles that some of our predecessors went through, and they take it for granted. A lot of them now today in big law firms, when those law firms didn't want you at one time. Didn't want you at one time. When we got our first black judge in the Court of Common Pleas, Raymond Pace Alexander, the members of the bar didn't want him to go to Common Pleas Court. It was right for a judge to be in municipal court, but not in the Court of Common Pleas. But the party chairman at that time said, he's my candidate. He was there. But a lot of our young black, male, female, do not know these stories. And maybe it's because we do not tell it enough. Maybe like some ethnic groups keep their stories alive, you know, but maybe we do not tell it enough. And I find that, I was talking with a friend of mine last week, we had lunch together, one of the judges, and we were saying the same thing. So I was telling him some things, he said, I never knew about such things. I never knew about such things.
What kinds of things were you sharing with the judge?
Well, we had a white judge. His name was Vincent Carroll. And Richardson Dilworth became the district attorney in Philadelphia.
It's me.
And he hired a lot of blacks into the DA's office. He assigned a gentleman by the name of Tom Reed to Judge, I don't know what his name is getting that quick. Carroll's court, okay? Judge Carroll said he did not want him in his courtroom. He wanted a white DA in his courtroom. And so he told Mr. Reed, you call Mr. to get Mr. Dilworth in here. So Dilworth came down. And he told him he didn't want Mr. Reed in his courtroom as a district attorney. Mr. Dilworth told him, he said, well, Your Honor, Mr. Reed is the DA assigned this room, and he's your DA. Judge Carroll said, well, I'll close my courtroom. He said, Dilworth said, Your Honor, I have no control of you closing your courtroom, but when you open it, Mr. Reed will be the DA and turn around and walk out. Said Carroll just sat up there sputtering, and Reed was the DA in that courtroom. So I was told about that, so he said he had never heard that story. So just, a lot of the things that go on that, like I say, a lot of our young folk today take it for granted that they can go out and get into a big firm. They can graduate med school and go into the operating room at Einstein and whatnot when they didn't want you. We had Old Mercy Douglas Hospital where most of our black physicians used to go, which is not in existence anymore. But that's where the black physicians had to go because they couldn't go to UPUP, couldn't go to Einstein, Temple. So those are the kinds of things that we just need to let our folk know that before the civil rights movement changed a lot of that. Just didn't want you.
Can we back up a little bit? What year did you start practicing law?
1962.
1962. Okay. So I guess some of the laws had started to change by that time, but it really wasn't.
Well, the movement was beginning
Right.
about then because several of the fellows who were in law school with me, I think they were a class ahead of me, were involved with the integration of one of the lunch counters in North Carolina. I think that first lunch counter in the city, a couple of law students from Howard were involved in it. So that's when things were beginning to evolve.
So were you, did you know Thurgood Marshall
Not
and others?
personally,
Okay.
not personally, admired him
Okay.
from a distance.
All right.
I did have an opportunity to meet him, to see him, hear him speak, a couple of occasions. He went to Lincoln University, by the way, and Howard Law School. But to know him personally, no. I don't know him personally.
When you mentioned the lawyers that gone down, I thought he perhaps was one of those lawyers that were involved with that case.
Which case is that?
The one you were just referring to with the lunch counters.
Okay. He may have been involved.
Okay.
Because I think NAACP legal did get involved
Right.
in that. But,
So sorry to interrupt your story. So you were just talking about some of the ways your colleagues were getting involved in the civil rights movement. Were you involved personally?
I got involved in some of the events, yes.
What was your experience being involved in the civil rights movement?
Well, we integrated Girard College. I don't know if you're aware of that. There was a march around the wall until Girard was finally integrated. And when I say we, Cecil Moore, and I guess you've heard of him. He led the struggle there. Was involved with that. When they built Strawberry Mansion High School, there's some questions about blacks and engineering, the lack of blacks in the engineering. There was a big picket around led by Cecil. So, been involved in those areas.
Were any of the marches or activities around civil rights that you were involved in, were any of them um, sponsored or through Tinley Temple? Was part of your involvement through Tinley Temple?
Not directly.
Okay.
No, no.
Okay. I'm interested in just going a little bit deeper in the conversation you started a little bit earlier about wanting younger people to understand more about how they've arrived where they are in terms of the, I guess, employment, and some of these other issues. What do you see as being some of the major shifts from your time going through your education, getting established in your career? How would you describe, what would you say are the major shifts that you've noted?
Well, the opportunities now that, like I said, a lot of youngsters. If you look at most of these, and I look at law firms, you'll find in most of them there's several black people moving up into partnerships in various levels, administrative duties within those firms. Whereas back in the 60s, it just did not exist. You may have had a firm that had maybe one person. I remember Mr. Coleman was with, I think, the Dilworth firm. And he was one of the few in the city that was with the law firm. But now there seems to be more opportunities for them. A lot of those firms go out and recruit. They recruit like at Howard Law School, where they wouldn't come there before, but now they come to Howard Law School and Texas Southern Law School, North Carolina Central Law School. They're coming to those places and recruiting. So I've seen that change. But like I said, my hope is that when they get to that point, they gotta realize that back here, what the folks went through to help you get where you are. Because remember, it's mentioned Cecil Morgan. It got to a point one time where businesses were opening up because they didn't want Cecil coming to picket them. Okay, because Cecil would picket you in a minute. So rather than having the fear of Cecil picking, Ms. Bodie, we want to give you a job. Okay. Hey Cecil, we got somebody. So that happened. Cecil threw up a picket line around, the bus terminal, about hiring blacks, Greyhound bus drivers, and Trailway bus drivers. He threw a picket line up around there and whatnot. Like I said, it got to the point where people, they started hiring. And that's what we just need to let the young folk know, that it hasn't always been like this, but it's because the folk have taken charge, done some things, taken some chances, and here you are.
So in addition to wanting young people to understand the path that led to these doors being opening, is there anything else you think it's important for them to understand in this time?
I think that's it.
Okay.
If they get that, they will have it. You know. We got to get the message out to them. See, we had our Holocaust. We just don't talk about it. Other folk, they have a parade once a year up here on the Parkway and close down the Parkway and talk about it. Well, we don't talk about it.
Do you have any ideas why that might be the case? Why we don't talk about it.
Except to say that we get this thing, well, you know that happened, but that's the way it is now. Well, it isn't the way it is now for them either, but they still talk about it. So other than that, but we should. You know. I know my daughter was growing up, I used to tell about certain things. You know, we had an opportunity to go to Ghana, and those places that you read about the Obamas visiting. We visit those places, Cape Castle, slave quarters, and whatnot. And I'm saying my granddaughter's with us. Went to Ghana also. She was about 16 then. You know, and this, hey, look, this is where it started for a lot of us. Right? See those door no returns? We need to let our folk know. We didn't come over on the Mayflower. Neither the Pinto, the Santa Maria. We didn't come over here on no. But we don't talk about it now. Because it's, well, you know, that's in the past now. But John Jones is making $300,000 a year work for American Express. So we shouldn't talk about the door of no return. Yes, we should talk about the door of no return. We should talk about
Vision isn't too good here. Are you familiar at all with what was going on with the Crosstown Expressway here in Philadelphia?
somewhat.
Do you have any knowledge of how that has changed, how that changed opportunities for blacks here in this part of Philadelphia?
Not really.
Okay.
It was, matter of fact, where I used to live, growing up down here, was a part of that. But it died for a long time. It really never came into fruition. They changed it, put it in 676 on Vine Street. But I do know that, okay, in fact, I guess it did have some effect because a lot of people in that corridor were displaced while they were supposed to be getting ready to build it. Because if I recall, it was from the north side of Bainbridge to the south side of South Street. It was a Crosstown Expressway diagram. So yeah, there were folk in that area, because most of us who live in that area, black, were displaced. And the expressway never came. I think it was Frank Rizzo, Mayor Rizzo, who finally said, forget about it. And then they started rebuilding that area. And when they rebuilt the area, a lot of the black folk who used to live in there can't afford to live in there because them houses. I know the house I used to live in, they redid that over. So in effect, it did have some effect on the folk. Now that I think about it.
Did you ever think you would see a black president in your lifetime?
No.
No.
I didn't. I
Okay.
really didn't.
What kind of thoughts did you have when Barack Obama won the first time?
I was elated. I was just elated before he won with the showing he was making in the primaries. And when he won Iowa, I said, look out here. And I remember my brother-in-law and I talking one day, and we were both saying, there's something happening here. Something is happening. See, I think he just won the Iowa primary at that time. And we both agreed that something was happening. So I jumped on the bandwagon. Well, I was on the bandwagon. I just went up and got a front seat. I was in the back, but I got a front seat on the bandwagon, you know, after that. But I was elated. I really was. And I still am.
So when you say you got a front seat, does that mean, what does that mean for you that you took a front seat?
That means I started working harder, making calls, doing things, even contributing a little bit of money. You know, so, yeah.
So with President Obama being in the White House, many people have called this we're now in this post-racial era where race doesn't matter as much. What do you think about that? How does race matter today?
Race continues to matter today. And for those people to say that, it's ridiculous. This president has been treated like no other president in the history of this country. And despite what you say, I think the color of his skin has a lot to do with it. Okay? And every other president has been able to work out things with the Congress, get programs done. What other president you know was called a liar during the State of the Union speech? Can you think of one? Think, you must be one somewhere down the line that the history books talk about. You sure? I can't either. But here's a Southerner yells out, "You're a liar," on the State of the Union speech. The President of the United States wasn't a liar. So it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. And those folks in Washington, I don't care what you say, like I read in the paper last week, the Congress says it's going to try to derail every one of his programs. Not even going to look at it. We're just going to derail it if he doesn't repeal Obamacare. Okay? And so, racism is still alive. They'll do it to him. They're going to do it to us. He's up there. They do it to him. We're down here. Do it to us. So that's a fallacy for people to say. That's a fallacy. If anything, I think it's broad. It's ugly. Reared its ugly head. More so in these last 6 years.
How do you see racism in the criminal justice system today?
It's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. Many instances, blacks are signaled out because they're black. You're going to have some situations where they're going to be prosecuted a little more heavily, probably charged. See, the district attorney has the process of charging. You can charge you with one crime, you can charge you with 2 crimes, you can charge you with 10 crimes. And more blacks are charged with more crimes, the same offense than whites. And they charge the black with more than whites. So it's there, and you have to be careful of that. You have to be careful of it. So it's there. Because it's all part of this society we live in. So it is there. You just need some people in the system to be a little more diligent and try to weed through some of that racism.
Do you think that there are some systems where we've made more progress than others in how we've addressed racism?
It's hard to say some have made more than others. Probably athletics. Now, probably athletics. Professional athletics. I don't think that. And probably because money's on the line, those guys want to win. And what goes on in the locker room, I don't know, I'm not there, but I think on that field, they want to win. And they know if the brother down the end is going to catch that pass from the white quarterback to help him win. They're going to protect that white quarterback so he can get that pass off to the brother and then give the brother some blocking downfield so he can do it. Baseball, same way. Basketball. That's probably, to me, probably the biggest area where, and since first when Jackie got in here, of course, they didn't want him. He had to catch heck. Right here in Philadelphia, it's one of the biggest places he caught heck. But now today, I would think that's probably one of the best, the big field.
And is there any other area that you would say would be the second area that we may have made some significant progress?
Well, the legal field, again, I can only speak for the legal field because, like I said, there are more opportunities now for blacks to get into the bigger firms. So probably in the legal field, there's been some changes there.
What about some of the areas where we've made the least progress from your viewpoint?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Probably in the executive levels of large corporations. Probably there. I don't know. Yeah. Don't know too many people at the top in a large corporation. So that may be an area now. That may be changing. We have, was it Chenault, I think his name is, American Express, who was, I think, CEO, or at least he was, there. So that may be changing, but I would say in the corporate world.
Someone, I think a law professor named Michelle Alexander wrote a book called The New Jim Crow on mass incarceration.
Yeah, and I haven't read that. It's on my list. I heard about it not too long ago, and I just have not got around to getting it to read it. But it's on my list again. Yeah, I did hear about it.
What do you think is the greatest challenge that this next generation of African Americans face?
I would say to be diligent, to be ready to take on the task of the forebears, to move into areas where we're not going, in a corporate world. That would be it. Be diligent to focus on making this a better world for blacks and everyone else. I think that would be it.
What do you think is the challenge for all Americans, given that we continue to deal with racism? Do you think their challenge is any different? Is there anything else you would
Well,
add?
we got to try to overcome it. That's the challenge. How? When? The questions. But we have to overcome it. And we just have to keep plugging along until we do it. And there's some attitudes that are changing, and hopefully we can get those folks who are changing to work towards making the change to bring this about, to overcome it. It's going to take some work. It's going to take a lot of work. Attitudes. It's going to take a lot. It's like, I don't know, there was a letter to the editor in the Inquirer one day last week. I think a lady who was walking along was knocked down by some kids on bicycles. Took her pocketbook. She was pregnant. And in the letter she infers that I don't want to prejudge, but it certainly doesn't help not to prejudge. Now, what is she going to carry the rest of her life? So we have to change the attitude.
There was a question I did want to ask you. What did you think of the court's decision on the Voting Act of 1965 in recent?
I thought it was ridiculous. And to hear Justice Scalia make the comment about, what was it, how did he say about blacks? We were enfranchised or something like that. He made some comment during the arguments. So we're dealing with a conservative court. There's no question about it. But as far as the decision itself, I just didn't agree with it. Didn't agree with it at all.
And I guess I raised that question with you because based on what you've said, what you've shared so far, your desire for young people to understand their history, it seems that that might be a piece of the history that could potentially be lost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Although I did read over the weekend, the Justice Department is looking at a way to either get that back in, but implementing that part of the law in lieu of the decision of the Supreme Court. So they're still looking at it. It's not, as I understand it, a dead duck yet, but they're still looking at some way to try to get around that decision. But yeah, it is a part of the history because why is it there? Because we couldn't vote in the South, and that's why it was put there. So that's a part of our history too.
Is that an area that you think we've made significant progress in voting?
Yes, particularly in the South.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly in the South, because that's why that provision was put in there. What, 65, I think, was put in because of the situations out. Look, we have many elected officers in the South now. Mayors, congressmen, legislators. So, oh yeah, we made significant strides in voting.
Well, I think we've answered most of the questions about community change, so I won't go through this list because I think we've answered them as we've talked. So I just have one last question about community change. So many congregations have experienced community change like those that Tinley Temple has experienced. Why do you think Tinley Temple has continued to stay here, though the community changes and many of the members have moved out to other parts of the city, the suburbs, even New Jersey?
Tinley Temple has remained because of the membership that has remained, that still comes. And most of us now do not live close by in this vicinity. A few of our members still do. Like I said, I grew up 2-3 blocks away from here. I used to walk to church. But it's remained because of the faithfulness of those of us who've been here for a while. It's remained because we love this church. We give to this church. The church has meant so much to most of us. You look around, some of the older ones, like myself, who have been here for a while, they'll probably tell you, this church has meant so much to them. Going away, school, military, come back, they're still here. And hopefully we'll continue to be here for a while. We're going through some aches and pains, like most denominations are going through now. A lot of churches are going through it. But we're still hanging on. Try to do that.
Do you have any favorite Tinley hymns?
Yeah, the one we got here. Let's see. And we sang it this morning. We'll understand it better by and by. We had a funeral here this morning. So we sang that here this morning. I like that one. Beams of Heaven. I like that one. I like most of his hymns, really.
What does his hymns mean to you?
Well, most of his hymns kind of tell a story, and most of his hymns to me is a story of hope and looking beyond and giving you the faith and courage to go forward. That's what it means to me.
Well, I don't have any more questions. I just want to give you an opportunity if there's anything, any final thoughts you might have on any of the topics that we didn't get to, that as we close out you might want to share, whether it's on race relations. A little tired. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning
Wow.
to get here. Or the influence of Tinley Temple.
Well, I've already commented on the influence of Tinley Temple on my life. So, like I said, it's been a part of my life. It's where I am, what I am, what I hope to be. Tinley is to me. It's to me. I'll be here till they cart me out. No, I can't think of anything else.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
And we will transcribe your interview, and then we will share the interview with you in a story type of form.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, if you have some things you want to add, you can add those. Or
Okay.
you might find that there's some things you want to take out.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll give you a chance, as I said, at least 2 opportunities to see our product while we're in.
And look, I said, did I say that?
Right. We found that a few people, few people just let it rip, and then maybe someone else in their family read it and said, I don't think you want to say that. One person, we let them see it twice, and they said it was fine, and I kept saying, really? But she said it was fine. Then we got it up on the web, and somebody called her and said, we saw on the web. So yeah, we definitely give people multiple chances, just in case if they want to run it by a friend who might have a little different threshold.
Okay. All right.
Do you have an email address?
Mm-hmm.
Because we should probably take that down so we can email to you.
Okay.
And you said you bowl?
Yes.
Where do you bowl?
65th and Market. You from Philly?
No, I'm actually originally from New York, but I bowl.
Here?
I bowled for Morgan State.
Oh,
And I bowled in New York.
Team? You bowling more six? Oh, okay. Oh, you're a ball. You. All right.
What's your average?
162.5. I didn't bowl this last. I had knee surgery, so I didn't bowl this last season.
Okay.
Yeah, what's your average?
190.
See, I knew. See, they always like that. Like, what's your? So you ask them what it is, you know. What, 190. And then she stretches out the 90, you know. Yeah, all right. Did you bowl in New York at all?
Yeah, I bowled since my whole family bowled, so I've been bowling since I was 4, and then I came to Morgan to bowl, and then I didn't bowl last year.
Did they bowl in the National Bowling Association, NBA at all?
No, with school you only bowl in the NCAA.
No, I mean your family. You said they bowl in New York. They bowl in NBA?
My mom does that. Women's
What's her
tour.
name?
Rebecca Webb.
Rebecca Webb.
Yes. She's bowled everywhere.
I think I know Rebecca Webb. When you call Rebecca Webb, she know LeVan Gordon. She used to bowl in our tournament.
And she had
She
twins.
has a good average.
And she had twins.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She bowled in the, what we call the Rodman tournament.
Yes. Yep. You know my mom.
The Rodman, yeah.
Mhm.
Sure. I used to be the director of the Rodman tournament.
Okay.
Right.
She's getting back into it, so.
Right. Yeah. Rebecca Webb from New York. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell her you met LeVan Gordon. I tell her, if she don't remember, so he used to be the director
She'll
of the
remember.
tournament before the present director, Paula Dozier. Okay. Yeah. Small world. Isn't it?
Small world.
1 9. She directed 9 out there. 1 9. I never hear what the last part of it was. And you know, okay. All right. And your name again is?
Segura Wheeler.
Segura. Segura. I can remember
Because
that.
my dad was Rashi, and he bowled out in the
Okay.
Rodman and
Yeah.
Vegas.
Right, yeah. Okay. Yeah, they both NBA.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, Rebecca Webb, sure. Oh, you want?
Your,
we got to know 1 9.
your email address.
VANNGOR@MSN.com.
Okay, great. So when we get your transcript and your story written, we will email it.
Okay.
And so then the next phase will be we will.
Just put a subject line on it.
Okay.
You know, because if I don't recognize the email address, delete.
Okay. So I'll just put the Tinley Temple interview. Maybe that would.
That'll
be
help.
good.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That'll be
Okay.
good. Yeah.
All
okay.
right. We'll get together with you to review it. Any questions we might have to clarify. You might have some things, as I said, you want to add or take out. And we would also be interested in some pictures, as you saw the other document that we showed you.
Let's see.
I think that was the one we shared with you is either,
This.
yeah, I think this might be Mr. Joyner's. Is it Mr. Joyner? No, this is Mr. Tucker. So basically, we would be interested in some pictures you might have of your family, yourself, that we could add, you know, pictures you might have of your time here at Tinley Temple. He came to Tinley Temple when he was a very young boy, so he didn't really have too many pictures of himself at Tinley Temple.
Okay.
But, you know, whatever you have, we will bring our scanner and we'll scan them, so you don't have to give them to us. You don't have to worry about that kind of a transaction. So if you have some, that would be great. Okay.
So now you will transcribe that.
Yes, we will.
Then you'll send it to me.
Right.
Then you'll get back to me.
Right.
And we'll go over it.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So we'll get back together face to face so that, you know, we can make any changes and also scan the photos that you might have. And then
Okay.
once we get that scanned, we'll put that into design. So that copy you have now is in design, and we'll send that to you also by email, so you get to go through it again and see if there's some changes that you might want to make. And then after that process, we'll be ready to finalize it and place the document on the web.
Okay.
And we'll send you a copy, and we'll also send you edited versions of your interview on a CD. So if you wanted to share it with your daughter in California, your granddaughter, you'd have a couple copies to
Alright.
send that and mail that out to them.
Okay.
Along with the along with the website address so
Mhm.
that they could access it.
Okay.
So we'll get that information to you. Okay. All right.
Doesn't look like Louis Tucker.
Do you know Louis Tucker?
I know. Well, look, I don't.
He turned 100 this year. His niece attends.
Oh,
His niece is Brenda.
Brenda. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So he was
So
actually.
this other Louis Tucker was part of this family too, but
Oh, okay.
he's deceased.
Yeah.
But,
So.
Okay.
Yeah. He attended the Messiah this year. I actually took that picture of him at the Messiah.
At the Messiah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was here.
All
He
right.
turned 100 a few days before the Messiah.
Right. Her mother lived to be pretty old too. She just died recently. Brenda's mother. Mhm. Okay. You send me to keep that?
Yes, you can
Okay.
keep that.